So hi, I just wanted to kind of continue from my previous video about cost curves. There's just so much information in just this small picture, so I wanted to pull out some more information in this video. So here, again, continuing on, right, we talked about the relationship between average total cost, average variable cost, and marginal cost. And one thing that I did not mention was the supply curve of the firm, right? When we look at our basic supply and demand curve, we see that supply curves, they go up and then demand go down, whatever. Ooh, okay. And so why are we getting that? Where are we getting that supply curve from, right? And what's amazing is that we can kind of manipulate that. We can understand that here in this unit. Why is the supply curve right above the average variable cost, right? And so the big formula, which I didn't really highlight it as big, but something that you should really know is that when the price that you give to the customers, when that price is less than the average cost of that unit, of that input, then you shouldn't even be selling that product, okay? Then you're probably going to, in the short run, you're probably going to get bankrupt. Like it's not a good idea. So when the price is less than the average variable cost, you want to shut down, right? So that's your shutdown rule, when price is less than average variable cost. And here we say that when price is greater than or equal to, you would want to keep purchasing. You would want to have that price. You would want to keep paying that price. So this is why, right? So here is our average variable cost, and that's the price that you would pay, right? Marginal cost is equal to price. We will talk about that in the future. So when this touches the marginal cost and anything greater than, we have our supply curve. So that is why that's that. Also, one more thing that I wanted to mention is that look at how that the average total cost and average variable cost, they're getting closer and closer as you increase the quantity. Why is that, right? Think about how much smaller the average fixed cost is getting. It's getting smaller and smaller. So the difference between average total cost and average variable cost is the average fixed cost, right? Right, because if you just manipulate that equation, average variable cost plus average fixed cost is our average total cost. So as you keep increasing your quantity, as the Q gets larger and larger, you'll see that they're kind of touching they're getting closer and closer together, but just not touching each other. So it's pretty cool. So now let's take all these things that we've learned about cost curves and put it to work, right? There are all these firms around us. We want to know, how are they producing things? How are they measuring how much something costs? And, how are they measuring it in relation to short term versus long term? So these are some questions that we would like to answer, right? And it all comes down to, because since this microecon theory, it's a math course, really. So we want to go into the nitty gritty. We want to talk about functions. We want to talk about equations. So let's get started. So a firm uses L units of capital and L units of labor and K units of capital at prices W and R, right? So W is normally it's wages and R is your rental price. The rental price is really just, the rental rate of capital, right? So it's how much are you paying? And it's normally fixed, right? It's like that fixed payment that you give when you're trying to purchase like a machine to create more goods, right? So like if you're trying to purchase a lawnmower and it costs $100, that's your rental capital to rent out that lawnmower. So that's really what it is. And so marginal product of labor, right? So we talked about marginal cost. So this really, if you just kind of tie it back to what we talked about there, marginal product is really just the derivative of the total product, right? So marginal product is that change, right? That additional output that you're producing when you're taking in one more unit of labor, right? So this is marginal product of labor, and we kind of address that with our little subscript L. So there's an MPL and an MPK, right? So for L and K, and in this class we like to have L in our x-axis and k in our y-axis. So L, comma, k. So that F stands for the function of, right? So quantity, the quantity that we produce is a function of our labor and our capital, okay? So, and again, the costs are W times L plus R times K. And so you're probably asking, okay, why is it WL plus RK, right? So that's, again, like when you're purchasing a certain amount of labor, you multiply it by how much it's worth so that you can find the total cost of that labor. So that's why it's WL, same theory, same concept for the R times K. Okay, so we just talked about the marginal product of labor, right? So this is what it looks like. And now, additional thing to understand is, okay, what is the value of this additional output? When we want to find the value, right, we are going to multiply that output, that MPL, by the market price. So that really tells us the value. When you're asked on an exam, like, oh, what is the value of this additional output? What you're doing is you're multiplying that. Okay, so what is the value of each of my additional output that's produced, right? Same thing like before, right? We multiply the price times that quantity. We're going to multiply that price times our marginal product of labor. That gives us our value. And so this is an important thing to remember. And again, what is the cost of obtaining this additional output? You have to go back to this kind of formula, right? This formula. The key word here is additional, okay? So additional means that we kind of have to disregard that fixed cost, right? Like I said before, if we suppose that K is fixed, normally the capital is fixed because in the long run you don't really change, or in the short run at least, you don't really change your machinery too much. It's just a waste of money, right? You're wasting space and you're wasting your benefit that you gain. And so when we're looking into like additional output, additional costs that's gained, you are not going to think about the fixed cost, right? You're going to think about what has changed. You're going to think about the variable cost. So that's why, what is the cost of obtaining this additional output? Since the capital is fixed, it's just the cost of the labor that is used to produce that one more unit, right? So that cost of labor, okay, what is the cost of labor? Look back to this formula, right? Cost of labor is the wage times the amount of labor, right? So let's say if you have 10 workers and it costs and you're paying each of them $15 an hour, which is pretty great. You would just do 10 times 15, that's 150, and that $150, so that's the cost of labor, okay? So in the short run, in the short run world, you would pretty much suppose that the K is fixed unless otherwise mentioned on an exam. So here we talked about a bit of the concept, right? This is our production function. So this is something that, if you want to take something out of this video, it's that this is our production function and this will be our cost that are associated with that. And we will go more in depth when we talk about these problems and connect it with the larger world. So yeah,